Hi, welcome to today's episode of Extreme Narcissism TV. I hate this image. This is just going to be another weird episode where I'm showing you my art. And this is just me going through files. I have files and files and files of work, personal stuff, sketches, drawings. I just grabbed a file and said, we're going through this file. I did all this. It's horrible quality copies. Everything's going to be cut off. I'm just showing it and talking about making a living. You're going to see a bunch of different styles and varieties. Yeah, I know it's a weird, grim thing. So you're going to see different styles and stuff, which when I was, pursued this kind of freelance work for hire stuff, they didn't want you to have a bunch of different styles. Like it never served me to do that. Every time I wanted different jobs, I could do all these different styles, and I thought, that makes me versatile. I'll show them I can do all this stuff. Isn't it great? And what other guys that were working professionals told me, the young guy, was, no, it's not great. They don't like your versatility. Like, by the time I got into the marketplace, it was all based upon, that one. It was all based upon, this is so old, this is like maybe right out of high school stuff, Mobius influence stuff, just clear line work. I mean, there's other versions of this particular stuff where it's in color. It's a lot of work to color it, but I'm just showing whatever's here. So is the Mobius influence. You can tell where I can't draw right. It's like he's like an alien guy. He's not supposed to have a face. And it was some story, personal story. Not this thing. This is a guy hugging a ball sack or whatever that is. That was just learning perspective. This one, part of the same story. This guy is an alien with no nose. Typical design. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of things used like this. A human with no nose, because it's hard to draw noses. So anyway, I just couldn't draw, so I'd cram pictures with detail. Like I said, this is like high school shit. Lots of detail, lots of stuff going in there. I did use some photo reference for some of the things. I just liked filling pictures with visual information. Again, this is Mobius influence, Winsor McCay. Anybody that could just filled it with the Esteban Banyov. Not so much him, because it was hard to get a hold of. Like, his book wasn't available, but I knew that guy, and it was interesting what he did. More so for color. Well, I don't know everything he did, but he's just pervert. I wasn't interested. This again is my story, part of my story. I was doing like a graphic novel, but I wanted to have like illustrations. I was more interested in just doing a portfolio that I would write a story to, and you would read the story and look at the images. But there's going to be profuse images. It's going to be like a magazine comic book that was just words and pictures and lots of them and lots of detail and informations and drawings and schematics. And that was my teenage stuff. Here, more of the same. This is one of the characters. That's the other. It's not about, you can see I'm just using photo reference. I would get stuff from newspapers, circulars. I would just grab the whole Sunday papers and get all the models. And I knew somebody worked at the post office. They would just get me magazines that were like unclaimed or whatever at the post office. And I would just take anything and use anything for photo reference. There was no internet back then. So I was just like, oh, that's kind of a pose I need, or a position, or a way of drapery. So then I would just take the people and add them in. The way I learned about illustration, a lot of stuff I learned from a guy called Arthur Rackham, who was part of the Victorian age, or the golden age of children's book illustrations. And he used to draw these fairies and elves, and people would get lost in the woods, and he'd do monsters and goblins and stuff like that. And I was really into it when I was developing my art sensibilities. I liked William Heath Robinson, the Robinson brothers, particularly William Heath Robinson. And you may see some of that influence in my stuff. If you don't know who William Heath Robinson is, this is somebody I expect who Grant Morrison's artist that he always works with. Who is that guy that Grant Morrison always works with? Damn it, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, the guy who drew All-Star Superman, that guy knows who William Heath Robinson is, for sure. Because it's an influence on his drawing style, the way he draws faces even, I'd say. Damn, what the hell's that guy's name? I used to know it. Because I liked his artwork, because it looked like William Heath Robinson to me. Yeah, the same thing. Same character with no nose. This one, he's getting attacked by these creatures. I used some of this design work when I did concept design, because this is a personal project that I outgrew and was never going to do nothing with. So I used some of the limbs, these like weird slashing deer limbs and stuff that I used in production design, and I talked about in another video for something that never got made. This is something I did that never got made. And there's a whole backstory to it. I'm not going to get into it. Not even going to get into it. Doesn't matter. This is another story. Kid gets lost in the woods and These are all kinds of weird spirits and stuff, which is interesting. Look at these little ghost things. This is before Mononoke. I just wanted to make these little cartoon imp things, like ghost things without faces. And the Princess Mononoke is a similar thing. But nobody stole my idea. It's just too, it's obvious. It's a little Pillsbury Doughboy, nothing, blank figure. Pink Floyd The Wall. It's just an army of Pink Floyd The Walls. Miyazaki didn't invent it either. I just used to do these bamboo brush paintings. There's a study that I sold. These are just scrap. I said it could be anything's in here. I don't know what's going to be in here. It's not going to be all my professional stuff or portfolio stuff or teenage work or whatever. This was for a book I did called Shoebox Whale. It's a children's story about taking personal responsibility. He gets this whale that's in a shoebox. It flies around. It's got a magical element. And then it outgrew the house and got too big. He had to let it go. This one's like a study for a mouse hole of a cartoon background. Like Tom and Jerry. This is sketchbook stuff. I don't know why it's in there. Sketchbook and ballpoint pen with watercolor. Oh, this, I just took a bunch of, I needed money. And I didn't have any. So all these next couple pages, there's probably going to be a bunch of these. I just took sketchbook stuff, put them together with a photocopier, or just took doodles and sketches. Like, I hate this kind of stuff. Baggy jeans were happening back in the 90s, and people started getting tattoos. So I just started making tattoo flash. All these next pages you're going to see is just cheap alcohol markers that I colored in. These next like 7 or 10 pages of stuff. I think you have to have 10 pages of flash and get $100. So all this stuff you're going to see is just my versions of flash. And unfortunately I regret this, because I know that some people have some of these things on their bodies. I've seen it. They've shown me, look, I got one of your tattoos. And I'm like, no! Yeah, I didn't realize what I had done. My stuff is graffitied on people's bodies. And, and they're lame tattoos. It was a scam. I was young and dumb. I didn't think these things through. I didn't know that things had a moral dimension to it. So I was like, I can draw. I'll just put together sheets of flash. I'll take it to all the tattoo places and see who bites. Hey, I think I made like $500 in a day selling these sheets. And so the one place, the guy didn't even want all the sheets. I didn't care. I didn't know that there's like a code to selling flash to tattoo places. I just said, hey, you just want this sheet for like whatever. I just sold the one guy the sheets that he wanted. And I did a lot of tattoo flash. Some of it's just black and white. You're never going to see it in this slideshow because I know it's not in this folder of what I'm, showing you now. But look, this was an illustration I did for something. These are all just things I just cribbed stuff I did for other work, maybe for other people, maybe for myself, and use it as tattoo flash. And, I always like to use surnames for the different types of work I did. So I always had these fake little names for the stuff. I had like a fake little name where I would like write on all my flash stuff. I had a fake little name for animation stuff. I had a fake name for fine art painting stuff. All these little identities that were all me, just because I was told that by professionals, like, hey, just focus on one thing and make a name for yourself with that. I was trying to make a name for myself as an illustrator, just trying to get work. So I just do anything. Again, this is just all little clip art that I said was tattoos. It's nothing really. I managed to sell it though. Like I said, $500. And then when I had the guilt, like somebody has that on them. I think somebody has that one on them too. Yeesh. This is just like a sketch for illustration for highlights or some kind of shit like that. Just some kind of, like a color sketch. But stuff like this qualifies now. Like this could be an illustration now probably. But back then to me this was a sketch. This is me like being young and trying to get better. You can see I have some understanding of animation forms, that kind of stuff. Preston Blair shit if you know your animation stuff. This is just me scanning old stuff that I had. That's why it's here. Just weird old illustration stuff, like kids stuff. This is the bamboo brush art. Sold all this stuff, all the bamboo brush art. This is pretty big actually, maybe, I don't know, 11 by 17 or something. No pre-thought, no underlying drawing. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just took brush and ink and water to dilute and big sheet of paper and made this. I think that's even like somebody stepped on the paper there, but I made it work. Yeah, that's another one. I just drew somebody. I might have been supposed to be me. Just a weird version of myself. Might have been drunk. Sold it. This one's a character. You can see this on my YouTube page. This is Edel Albu. This is a little icon thing I use. I've done it so many times. I've sculpted it. I've pitched it in television shows, in cartoons. I pitched it in a movie to use as a thing in a movie. But anyway, that's my brush drawing. I sold this too. I never should have. I should still have this one, but I have the picture, which is good enough. This is after Princess Mononoke on manila paper. I just did like this sketch, and I guess I scanned it at some point. And then I did add in the Mononoke things and put it together, like I did my take on what I remembered from seeing that film, Princess Mononoke, which is a Japanime. And there was those little ghosts, those little yokai things in the movie. So I just did a little sketch of it on manila. And there it is, in pencil. Some more sketch scraps. Nothing useful. This one I sold. This one was also in a gallery show of, like, not Easter, but something like that. And I wanted it to look like candy box art. When I was growing up, there was this thing called Palmer Candies, where if you go to your 99-cent slave labor from China stores, you will see candies that still have this theme, color scheme, and type of art on it. And it was just me. I wanted to do this style to work in animation, to just be able to do quick stuff. Again, I was always trying to scam as an artist to, like, this is personal stuff. That was one of my signatures. This is a part of a pitch for a thing called Pajama Explorer. This is Dora the Explorer. I'll just leave it at that. But it was different. This was my Adult Swim. I pitched Dora the Explorer as an Adult Swim show with a little Hispanic boy, and he would go on adventures that was basically like an Adult Swim Fantasia, where anybody who wanted to could do a version of this main character, his magic doorknob, that Edel Albu thing I showed you just before, the little icon I used for my little icon on YouTube, little orange man. This was all part of the pitch for that. This is a Picasso painting, and I was just trying to show, like, it's crude, you can see, but in a cell form animation art style, like, hey, here's our main character, a little boy, a little Hispanic boy named Carl. It doesn't. His skin was supposed to be darker, and he had a magic doorknob. This is before Dora the Explorer, mind you. Take that, do with that what you will. But anyway, this was there's a Picasso background to be animated, and then I was thinking all this copyright-free stuff. Like, this kid could go anywhere. You get the Adult Swim bump music, any kind of music you could get, any kind of animators you could get. It was like my idea of an animation show for Cartoon Network that would just. You could do anything you want, as long as the main character's like this. You could look different, you could be in different animation styles. It was like a weekly Adult Swim Fantasia, predicated on a kid who had a magic doorknob with a genie inside that could take him to other dimensions. He also had a female friend that was his best friend, that was his sock puppet, that was just a sock with eyeballs on it that was alive. There's probably a picture of that in here somewhere. There he is in the desert, our protagonist with a magic floating doorknob. And he's running away from, some kind of creature thing that I created for the pitch. And then here's another character. This was a character I used later for a book that I did. I did do a book, and I used this as the main protagonist. He's like the most famous cartoon character in the world. This is my version of if SpongeBob was real, and what SpongeBob, the real guy, would have to live with what he had created as being a public figure. And it was my children's book for adults, I called it. And there's Priscilla. This is Priscilla the sock. Carl, the magic doorknob, doesn't have a name, and then Edel Albu, the little genie, the little wicked trickster genie, orange little deedly bobber guys in there with 3 eyes with the 3rd eye open and all that stuff. That was my idea for a kid's cartoon, but it was totally stolen to be Dora the Explorer. It's Edel Albu is swiper no swiping. The magic doorknob is the map. This show also had a magic bed map where the map could tell the kid where he was going to go next, so you could intro each video or a little segment, whatever, if you wanted to, just with a voiceover. There's just different backgrounds. I did all these backgrounds. I did a whole pitch for it. I did a Bible pitch. I did outlines for episodes. Here he is with a monster under the bed, one-eyed purple people eater type thing. And this is like shitty me painting shitty backgrounds, but it's good enough for what I wanted to use it for. This was a drawing I always liked that kind of reminded me of. I was kind of thinking of the guy who did the Gorillaz stuff. I can't remember his name. I want to say Killian Plunkett, but that wasn't Killian Plunkett. Was the other guy. I can't. He was the writer from Tank Girl, but the guy that the guy that does all the Gorillaz stuff, This was kind of inspired by his art style. Jamie Hewlett. Jamie Hewlett? Jamie Hewlett? Yeah. This is inspired by Jamie Hewlett's art style. The guy that did Gorillaz, does all his animations, invented the Gorillaz characters, what they look like. This is sort of inspired by his sensibilities, but it's a crappy resolution scan, which is all I had at the time. This is another background. I used it for a bunch of different things. It's like an animation style background, but I would just put whatever figures I wanted in there with Photoshop. This was part of a show I pitched at Cartoon Network. Again, parts of it got retconned and stolen and put into a show called Clarence by somebody. But this was my show, Cactusville. These aren't even any characters from it. These are just sort of citizens of the realm of the land, colored in alcohol markers. This is another part of Cactusville. Characters from Cactusville give you an idea what it looked like, the color schemes. I just was using what was already liked, but I was trying to make it be cool. Like, all the colors of cartoons were like purple, we were these colors. Purple, orange, and yellow, and red, and stuff like that. It was like in everything, even Disney stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna see if I can make it cool, and I made the characters simple so that they could actually be animated. I wanted to make cartoony cartoons that the animators could have fun messing with. This is an illustration. Yeah, it's one of those, like a Ghost in the Woods thing. I sort of used this later for a design, a concept design, but I made it more scary. It's in my surreal painting video. You'll notice this thing. This is like a cuter version of a monster. And there's some other there's a whole symbolism behind all this. More sketches, more stuff. There's like some kind of weird Cthulhu thing. It was a cartoon I did I had a cartoon about a rabbit character. And in the cartoon, the rabbit's like, yeah, I fucked it. And he's saying like he's had sex with this thing. It was a lame, perverted cartoon. This is just doodles and sketches. Nothing. More nothing. Cactus people. Cat person for like, that's like shit for other people. Shoebox whale scrap. This is a sketch. Illustration for a never did thing. That was watercolor and color pencil. This is just sketch cactus thing with baggy pants. Cartoon. More just junk. More junk. Sketch. Junk. Same thing again. I don't know, did I show you this one before? I think so. Saw this one before too, I think. I saw this one, that one. There's a different one. That's just watercolor. That was my Brian Froud phase. After I discovered Arthur Rackham, I discovered Brian Froud, and Brian Froud led me to try and imitate his sensibilities. So that's me learning Brian Froud, sort of loosely. This was characters of mine for a comic strip I had. There you go. There's Edel Albu. He's my little genie inside the magic doorknob. It was kind of a C.S. Lewis thing, but instead of going to Narnia, it was a magic doorknob that could take you to wherever you place the doorknob on, which was also sort of Beetlejuice, but it was its own thing. This is Durbursch. Durbursch was a little character from the comic, and that's Lucky the Rabbit. Those are all part of my Pajama Explorer thing, which I could still totally do. It's so far removed from Dora the Explorer and so different now that I could do it again, but there's no point. I don't want people to pay attention to any of this shit. I'm just showing you now to say, like, hey, here's a working artist and stuff they go through. But instead, what I wound up is doing is a history of what I did. I wanted to do more useful stuff about, like, working. But whatever. It is what it is now. That's just a personal thing. I remember doing this one because I was learning how to use a new brush. So I did a little elf guy, and I wanted to develop a brush technique. And this is me, early stages of that. No preliminary. I would just go for it. I would just go for it because I didn't like Robert Crumb's sexual perversion stuff, but I liked his artwork. Yeah, there's another version of the mouse hole thing. Here's just an illustration that's poor, didn't really work out. You can see how the background, that's the black is all ugh. But I don't like the colors, it's too close together, it's too a mess. And here's the black and white version of the same thing. I forget what this is for, but ultimately became nothing. I mean, other than I just put it away. This was an illustration, again, familiar characters. This is a character from another story of mine called Utbert, who is an Utbird is like a Scandinavian word for a dead foundling that becomes a ghost. Like, people would make Utbird, they'd take a baby out into the cold and leave it to die if they didn't want to raise it, and it would die out in the woods, and that's Utbird. So I made this character called Utbert, who was a dead foundling in the woods, and he meets this other little wood creature called Durbursch, and they meet an abandoned boy in the woods, and the story's about abandonment and family dynamics and child abuse and stuff like that. This is all part of the same story. There's the little boy from the same story, and then there's like other denizens of the woods. He's running away from these, you know, like symbolic beings. I'll just leave it at that. And then here's just a background for something. All this stuff in black and white that's with such detail, it's all intended to be color, and colored in such a way that it makes it stand out, so it's not just lines on top of one another. It's not just a mess, you know. Again, oh, there's Idle-Albu. This is the genie. This is Idle-Albu. This is the genie that comes out of the magic doorknob. The magic doorknob that when you turn the doorknob or put the key in or have the map can take you to wherever you want to go. Sound familiar? And there's our protagonist. He's irritated. I'm just gonna have to go through the pitch for my stuff I pitched. Like go through my whole pitches. Not to sell them. I'm done. I don't care about them. They're dead now. But maybe it might be interesting to see if I feel like putting time into talking about it. Just sketch. I think we're coming to the end. Another one, same thing, just characters. There's all the characters. Here's the whole cast. These are my main characters for my Adult Swim. I also pitched it for Nickelodeon first for kids. Then I pitched it for Adult Swim, which is the version I told you about. And then nothing happened. This, Priscilla the Sock. It's his sock puppet coming to life through magic. Also, Dreams, Adult Swim, Nighttime, a sock. You know, you can do the math. You can figure out the dirtiness or whatever you want. But it was Adult Swim. Could have had cool music. Could have been by anybody. You were on limit. This was your jumping off point. These guys, and the possibilities were limited only by your own creativity and cool tunes. But I'm sure all that sort of weird music with the binaural beats and all that kind of shit in it is all socially engineered anyway. So all your cool lo-fi, you know, loops and beats and trap music and all that stuff is probably government paid for. Oh, did I go down that road? Yeah, sure. So you get the main character, the boy you could identify with. Could be a girl, doesn't really matter. The magic doorknob that takes you places, the means. And then here's the trickster, the fun guy, the character everybody would love, the great doll. How cool would it be to see a bunch of these? Somebody's going to steal my idea and put it there. But I copyrighted this shit, so go ahead and take it. I'll fucking come after you. I didn't go after Dora the Explorer. But if you outright steal this shit, I will come after you. Even though I'm not going to do anything with it. That's the painting. I sold a bunch of shit like this on eBay. Holiday paintings. Whatever time of year it was. Do some paintings, but you got to be ahead of the curve. It's got to be in the mail and to them before, you know, when they want it. Which would be the holiday. This is another character from a book I did. I did a children's book for adults. I said it before. This is part of that. Again, same character, children's book for adults. A different version of that same character, but this is more like a test for how did I want to approach the book. Dr. Seuss style, painted like this, black and white, simple. You know, I don't know what I want to do. This one is interesting. Maybe I'll end the episode on this because I think it may be the last slide in this slideshow on this file. This was how I got to meet Simon Bisley and William Stout, and he died recently. What was his name? Jeffrey Jones, who was, if I'm not mistaken, friends with Vaughn Bodie, and the two of them were transsexuals. And when I met Jeffrey Jones, I don't know if you know who he is, but I'm just going to tell my Jeffrey Jones story. I met Jeffrey Jones sort of at the same convention I met Simon Bisley at. The only reason I was at this convention was because there was a 20 grand prize for an art contest. So I didn't really think that basically 20 grand is like almost an artist year pay back in 1990, whatever that was. So I entered this contest and forgot about it. And then they said, hey, you're a finalist. And it was the juried exhibition or whatever. They were having like an opening for a show at the convention. The whole thing was in New York. It was in Soho. It was on a pretty cool street. There was a gallery right there. And Simon Bisley was one of the finalists. So I went to the show just because it wasn't that far to travel to go to New York. So I went to New York and went to the show. And I was like, my competition was fucking Robert Crumb. Like I was a finalist with this piece, with this nothing piece. I was in a juried exhibition as a finalist against Robert Crumb, William Stout, Sid Mead, who just like threw some. She just threw a painting, like an old 1980s painting. It's like 20 grand shit. So there was a bunch of famous artists that just threw paintings to win this contest, but some of them didn't. For example, Simon Bisley was working on a portfolio or a book of the Bible or something like that. So he did the painting that won the 20 grand, which was, you know, painted, if you've seen that portfolio or whatever he did with that Bible stuff. But the painting that won the 20 grand was a Simon Bisley painting of, it's like two fingers touching each other. It's like a Sistine Chapel inspired type of art, where I think it's like the Virgin Mary inside of a room touching something upside down in verses. Maybe something symbolically evil, as Simon Bisley was inclined to. But that was the painting that was the actual painting. Like, he took some time and effort. And it was like probably a learning painting for Simon Bisley, but he won the 20 grand. He beat Robert Crumb. Robert Crumb did a big full color water picture, like, I don't know, like big, of him at his self-portrait of himself in watercolor, sitting at his artist table. It's like, had a lot of green tones in it. And I was like, wow, I took as long as I wanted to look at up close a Robert Crumb watercolor painting. I got to look at Simon Bisley. There's a William Stout something he just threw out there. Everything that and so many other finalists. And I was one of the guys that was there. And somewhere I saved my past to be able to be there. I'll find it. I'll prove it. You don't care. But anyway, I didn't win, obviously. I didn't win 20 grand for this piece of shit. But I got in. I don't know how. I just must have been one of the, like, okay, get this guy in there. I was nobody, still am, in terms of the art world. But I met Simon Bisley, and I didn't even tell you how I met Jeffrey Jones yet. But anyway, Jeff Jones. What's his name? Jeffrey Jones, the artist. Yeah. Anyway, Simon Bisley. I met him at the convention. I met him at the opening. And how I knew he was Simon Bisley is because he looked and was dressed like Lobo. He looked like him. He looked like he's kind of like a bodybuilder dude. He was Lobo, man. Like, when he draws Lobo for the comics, he was just referencing himself. Like, even the angles of Bisley's face were like the way that he drew Lobo. So it was cool. And I really liked Simon Bisley's style. Is ugly. It's like, but I like it. Like, I like his Frazetta. I like his choice of colors. But I particularly like this black and white stuff. And maybe even, although it wasn't deliberate, because I had no idea I was going to meet Simon Bisley. But he was just a dude. He was nice enough. And this has Bisley influence, because I remember looking at that Keith Giffen stuff and that Simon Bisley stuff, Trencher and Lobo, because Keith Giffen wrote Lobo and Simon Bisley drew it. Then Keith Giffen kept wanting to do Lobo, so he just created a character called Trencher for Image Comics. And they were just fun. I didn't like superhero comics, but I liked comics that made fun of them or goofy. And this one was, for better or worse, I met Simon Bisley in New York for this. Robert Crumb didn't show up, because by then, Robert Crumb was probably mailed his painting in from Europe. He was probably living in France by then. But yeah, is there anything else? I think this is the end of the slideshow. Oh, no, there's another one of that. I think I wound up using this for a t-shirt design or something eventually. I just changed the colors and put some. I used it for a Valentine one year. I just put like blah, 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 Valentine, and I sent that to people for goof. Oh, this is from another show I pitched. Oh, there's more. This is from a show I had called Cactusville. It was near and dear to me. I put a lot into it. It was about a single dad raising a kid. I was trying to do everything reverse of what I saw in all the cartoons. And now Cartoon Network, this is one I talked about before. They liked my designs, and they got back. I had a back and forth with Cartoon Network about this cartoon, but ultimately what they wanted was something different than I wanted, and I was so personal about what I wanted with this that I wouldn't give it up. So this character right here, his personality and his purple shirt, and they took my character here and they turned him into Clarence. In a weird way, this is Clarence. Now, I heard that Clarence, the creator of that show, is like a pedophile or something, so fuck that show. But anyway, I'm not. This was my idea of a show for kids that was supposed to be healthy. But I found out the hard way that Cartoon Network makes shows for advertisers, and they don't care about development of kids. That's an after effect. If they can put something that sells to kids into the show that as an after effect is good for kids, then fine. I know I fucked that up, but you get the idea. Anyway, these are my characters from my show. Little cactus kids. this is sort of what their town looked like. I was going for Flintstones, get it? Like I wanted to go back to the old Hanna-Barbera stuff and animated, even though I couldn't draw that way. I was kind of aiming for that with my cactus people. There's a cactus dad. Here's a cactus kid. She's a little older. He's a little younger. Yeah, I think anyway, here they were. They're best friends and neighbors. She's like a year or two older than him, but she's the tallest kid in school. So that was part of her, that played into what her personality was. And he was a next door neighbor who was younger, but kind of a kid that everybody liked, but naive and troublesome, and like a genial good kid that everybody liked. That could go. This kid was given the pass to go anywhere and get away with shit, and that was like sort of my device with him in the cartoon. And she was sort of his voice of reason, but also an older kid, but also like, oh yes, we must learn things about the world, and that was my Cartoon Network wanted to take all that away. So, and here he is looking at a ladybug. This is just sort of more like what the environment would look like, the backdrop of the whole show, different takes at how the backgrounds could be, watercolors, pastels, paintings, and then there he is coming home. I had this idea of this one episode. I did like a whole bunch of episode outlines that I foolishly sent those with because I really liked the show. They're probably taken and picked apart by whoever found, picked apart the carcass of whatever I sent to them, and whatever they saw from the proposal, whatever they had in their hands that they kept, the outlines and all that shit. I mean, I do remember from time to time, like years after I'd forgotten this shit, not years, but like after the thing was dead, they would send me back like some of the materials. And there was a cartoon I did. Just a one-off about this character I had called Bad Dad. And he was the alcoholic father that had a son. And it was all just like about the dynamics of fathers and sons and like how it's all fucked. And, me using it for humorous. Never did anything with it. But anyway, yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Look at all the different varieties of types of stuff. Chameleon I had to be. Yeah, there's a real me there. There's a guy there. But I did all these things, and I kind of had to keep it a secret. I mean, maybe the world's different now, or I just didn't know how to sell myself, that it was, that people would be impressed that I could do all these different, types of things, styles or whatever you have. But, I don't know, I'll do more of these. I can't do storyboards and stuff I did. That would show you like I could do comics and sequential. I think I do have some comics, but I wish I had, like, stuff that I made that I don't have anymore. I don't know if it exists at all. Like, I remember I was married, I got divorced. When I get divorced, I burned, like, boxes and boxes of my stuff. I remember my ex at the time, she's like, what are you doing? She's like, stop. She tried to stop me. This is somebody that divorced me. She let me burn the wedding album and stuff, but she didn't want me to burn my art. She's like, what are you doing? She's like, just like years of your life. And yeah, all that exists is files. There's stuff nobody will ever see. I was like a machine. I was like a one-man machine, which will be. My one-man machine episode will be an episode. I was a one-man assembly line. That's actually what I'll call the episode. I was a one-man assembly line because I did not want to work for... I mean, I always worked for other people making stuff, but I did not want to, like, have all these in-betweens between me and my money. You know what I mean? I even hated with galleries where the gallery would get a cut. And any gallery that got more of a cut than I liked, I didn't want nothing to do with them. Not that galleries read me up. I just would go out to galleries and say, hey, do you want my stuff? Send them slides, discs. You know how what you send changes through the ages. Or change very fucking fast. In a big hurry. In a big bad way real quick. But yeah, here's just a sampling. And this is nothing. I'm showing you all this bullshit. It's nothing. There's so much more. There's so much more I have files of. I'll probably never show you all the files. But the stuff that's not on files, there's also stuff I just burned. Sketchbooks. A whole lifetime of art. It's just all gone. I don't regret it or anything. This is what exists still. But I at one point I was so bummed out, I just wanted to be like an Apache woodsman and just burn it all down and start over again. And I had many start overs. A lot of my art career was scamming. Trying to figure out how I could get rich quick. But all my get-rich-quick stuff was always about... all my get-rich-quick stuff was always a lot of hard work. That I put... I thought, I'll be a cartoonist, and I'll just, like, do cartoons. I'll get good at it, because I wanted to combine all the things I liked. I was always, like, a homebody. I wanted to stay at home. So I like comedy, I like being funny. I like comics, I like cartoons. So I had to get out there in the world, and the more I did, and I had other kinds of jobs and careers over the last, however many, like I said, this is like 25 plus years of stuff. It's just a fraction of it. So I was, just living a life trying to figure stuff out, and I would drop things. Oh, I can't do this. This isn't art anymore. This is my sensibilities. This is art now. I'm about this now. I'm about that now. If you're an artist too, it's the only people still watching this. You change, you grow up. Oh, I like this. Now I like this. Same thing happens with kids now with video games. I heard kids saying, "Oh, I don't like Overwatch anymore. Now I'm in the fourth night." And then they were like, "Yeah, I used to be in Sonic the Hedgehog." I was like, "Yeah, I was into this, I was into that," and then just went through like the chain of their little trends. So I can see the history of me through art. I can see my influences, discover a new artist, discover new influence, have a new experience in life, change your sensibilities, meet somebody else who puts a bullshit idea in your head about art, learn some stuff at art school. You can see I was kind of from a soft illustrator type of school. When I started to do painting, that was sort of later. I don't think I started painting ever until I was like 30. So when I was 30 was like when I actually started picking up a paintbrush to paint on canvas. Before then, I didn't have any interest in it. And then I just started painting portraits of people, and that's more where I'm at now. It's an older thing, like painting people and, talking. Like, they don't have to sit. If I'm painting somebody, you don't have to sit still. You can talk the whole time. You can move around. And, and if you got to go away, I can work from the picture. But, it shows in the results of my work. I haven't shown my best painting work. I'm just showing you files. But anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this episode up. I just keep going through the same stuff you've seen before. But, yeah, I was trying to feel myself out. I wanted to be a great cartoonist. So this is me trying to figure out how to do cartoons. Trying to find a style. Artists try to find a style. You can see me trying to find a style. Styles, I suppose, to end this episode are hard won. You got to try a bunch of shit. You don't want to get stuck in somebody's style. Ken Kelly is an artist that's talented, but he got stuck in Frank Frazetta's style. And Frank Frazetta said it himself in Frank Frazetta's documentary about himself that he's in. So I don't feel bad saying that. And I've seen Ken Kelly artwork that I didn't know was Ken Kelly. Before I could tell the difference, I thought it was Frank Frazetta. But a lot of artists get stuck inside the style of the artist they like, and I was aware of that as a teenager. So I was a constant chameleon of styles thinking to get better, because I looked at what Picasso was doing. And I didn't like Picasso when I was in high school, and then I liked him as I got older and became more manly and more worldly, and now I'm full circle back to not liking Picasso again. But now I know why I don't like Picasso. I can appreciate that skill and that ability, but I don't like the statement of who he is as an artist. What he represents as an artist, I think, is a degeneration and breakdown of the arts. And I'm a product of that. Everything you see here is just, it's fleeting. It's not really art. It's fleeting. It's ephemeral. It's used to convey information about selling you products, or, even if the product is just a story I was trying to sell through whatever you may see here. You know what I mean? This is just base propaganda for selling a book, selling a story, an artist's beliefs. Do you like me as an artist? Selling a product. Do you know what I mean? Like whatever the sponsor of the animated cartoon wants to sell, you're shills for that. That's how it works. But for me, it was learning out stuff. Look at, I'm trying all these different techniques on the backgrounds, all that stuff. I think I actually painted this on a cell on acetate, and then I made a photocopy and then painted the back like traditional cell animation, and then put that on top of the background, because you can see some sort of shadowing of where I overlaid. It's faint. That probably doesn't show up on the YouTube video. I can see the shadows of where I laid the sheet of acetate over top of the painting, which is probably painted in acrylic on, like Bristol board or something. It's just nothing sketch. This one, testing out colors. You just don't be afraid. If you're an artist, don't be afraid to fucking do all the things you want to try out, because they're going to be bad. Don't care if people see your bad stuff either, because my stuff's not good. I'm not the best artist. I don't have the skill level of guys younger than me, and it doesn't matter, because the people who get the work go out and get it. Maybe it's different now with social media and the networking of social media, where people apparently are trying to stop each other's careers if they have different political views in the comics world, but I'm not even going to get into that. I never was really interested in comics that much, unless it was independent comics, because I didn't care about drawing superheroes. I didn't care about seeing them either, you know. So anyway, I could keep talking volumes, say so much more, bullshit about the life I've lived thus far. But here, here's some stuff. This was the one about, like, you can only go so far by doing stuff to get other people to impress you. And this kid, this little cactus boy, my main protagonist, my little hero here, wears himself out in a day and comes home to report to his father what he's been doing to get the bigger kids to like him. That's the kind of cartoons I was trying to make. And his dad has to say, oh, you're lucky you came away, with just almost being dead, because those kids don't like you. You're like a puppet to them. That's the whole point of the episode. So obviously Cartoon Network's not going to like that. Also, Cartoon Network told me they were only interested in shows marketed towards boys within the age range, which I think might have been 9 to 13. And they weren't interested in anything else at the time. I mean, I pitched stuff at different times. So what year that would have been, I don't know, because I don't remember what time I heard that. But yeah, I wanted to, I did want to shape, I didn't understand social engineering. I just thought, I'll just do counter. Here, they're doing all these weird messages to sell stuff. If I could do shows that are good, make good content with good messages that are good for kids, people will see that, and the world will, kids will get good messages. And when they buy my plastic little cactus kids, they'll get some kind of uplifting message. But I was like, oh no, that got shut down real quick. And it also was, one thing that helped me understand that the world that I lived in was different than, like I didn't know behind the scenes as much then as I do now. And like all the rackets and little politics and stuff. And when you make cartoons, you make animation, it's not about your idea. The idea should be good and it can be a personal project, but ultimately the stuff that gets made is who you know, where you are, but not always, do you have a product that already is something that they're like, oh, this meets all the messages we want to sell to advertisers. And if not, whatever you make, if you make anything to become a public property that could be a big hit and make you lots of money and make you a SpongeBob, you're going to compromise everything about your near and dear little thing that you love, unless what you created from the start was a thing like a SpongeBob that you could just I just want to be funny and do whatever I want with it, and here's the premise. So you have premise, a means to an end, be funny. SpongeBob got adults and kids watching cartoons, so that kind of got me interested in the idea of my own social engineering, even though I didn't really know it as such. I did have some background, like I said, background in advertising, pulling me aside as a teenager, weird things. And then, I went to school for advertising, college, high school and college, all that stuff. It didn't take. I'm a loser, drop out of all those things. I just didn't want to partake. I didn't want to join that world. I just wanted to do my, silly little things with my messages and morals and stuff and make pictures, just like you, just like any artist that doesn't understand what it's like out there. But I think you can have it your way. As an artist, you just have to be willing to say what really matters to me, and then just, I would say, work, save all your pennies and work to having a place that you own. Artists need a place to live. Artists don't do well in apartments. Artists need to create a womb or aura around themselves of their environment, and it needs to be a place that they can stay. Because art is a solitary thing, which makes artists weird, and the things they say weird, and it also makes artists susceptible to bullshit messages. And you can see all the bullshit I was into through my messages here, all my cultural stuff. Jeff Darrow's influence in here at some point. I met Jeff Darrow once. You know who he is? He's the guy that did Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot. He did Hard Boiled for Frank Miller. He did City of Fire portfolio with Mobius. Jeff Darrow's the guy that feels like images full of detail. And you just look at the pictures. It's like he's like Where's Waldo of graphic violence and stuff. And Jeff Darrow's really good at it. He could draw anything. I met him once at a convention, and I got to talk to him for as long as I wanted, because Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot had come out, and I was pitching my samples around to all the different publishers. But I wanted to meet him, and it was so easy, because this is New York. Jeff Darrow, Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot had come out, which was a Dark Horse thing, and there's Jeff Darrow just sitting there at his table looking around, because this is before, well, I don't know, it might have been internet, but I wasn't on it. And he's just sitting there, Well, of course, internet was there, but I didn't have it then. And nobody was talking to him. So I just got to pick his, he was a really nice dude. And then since nobody was paying attention to him, a girl and her mom came up, and he stopped. They were looking at his drawings, and he said, "Hey, what do you like? What name of animal you like?" So the little girl said, "I like dolphins." So he drew a dolphin for this little girl I talked to, and we just hung out. And he gave her, and she's like, "Thank you." And the mom was like, "Whoa, thanks." She didn't even know who Jeff Darrow was either, but the guy just gave her a free drawing. Everybody else was charging for it. I mean, I bought a drawing from Jeff Darrow. He had like a whole bunch of stuff that you could buy. I wanted an example of his work so I could like analyze it. But I also got to talk to the guy. He was a really cool guy to talk to. You know, everything I guess you'd expect. Easygoing, easy to talk to. Answer the questions you want to know. I didn't really ask him anything about Mobius or anything like that, who was alive at the time. I just kind of asked him about art stuff. He gave me some, you know, critiques on my samples, stuff like that. He's like, "Hey, I saw some of your influence and stuff I had at the time." He's like, "Yeah," he's like, "You need to get away from this." He's like, "I see you're trying out my thing here," but he's like, "You got to get away from that and find your own thing." And I did. I went to a brush instead. But, you know, I'm not the best artist, but I made a go of it. I went to, in the Juxtaposed days, Juxtaposed magazine. I had the first issue of that, which is probably worth money now. But anyway, Juxtaposed magazine had this artist did an interview in it called Frank Kozik, and he said, "I don't want to work for anybody else. I just want to make my own stuff and have that make money for me." He said, "I like the idea of this designer vinyl artist market. So he just wanted to make money for himself and cut everybody else out. So long story short, a year or two ago, I went to a Toys R Us to get a gift for a nephew, and I saw Frank Kozik's stupid little smoking rabbit in there, painted up like every superhero you could imagine. And I was like, wow, that guy who was a dirtbag artist who didn't mind being poor, who said, "I want to do painting, I want to make a name for myself," doing like basically like clip art, you know, like pop art, like, you know, like Andy Warhol kind of stuff or Lichtenstein type of stuff with his own messages and means in it. Didn't want to work for the man, didn't want to work for anybody else. Winds up getting his stupid smoking rabbit toy in Toys R Us. That's like a national chain toy store. You know, that guy that I read, that dirtbag guy, I'm not picking on the guy, I'm just saying, like, just to make it more of a cool story. That starving artist guy, that's nicer, wanted to make a name for himself, and he did. He said, "I'm just going to stick with this stupid rabbit thing and market it," and just it's so easy, a money-making thing for an artist. You manufacture one and you color it however you want. That's your whole stupid juvenile dunny mumbly blubs or Lego people things where the designer vinyl artist things where they take like a stupid object that's just the same and they paint it. Yeah. Well, Frank Kozik was one of those first guys. I remember reading that, and he gave me the idea of doing stuff like that. So I kind of became my own little one-man cottage industry, but I never took it to the point of like pouring molds into plastic and stuff like that. But I was really close to doing that, and I was like, I changed my mind about doing that. I was even going to go in on that with somebody else, and then I saw that guy who I was going to go in on it with. He wound up having his stuff in like all these I don't know what you call it, like Five Below or something. There's like these chains of stores like that. I was like, whoa, this artist guy got all his stuff in these stores, like somehow. So just stick with it. These were all guys I knew, even though I'm not naming names, all of them. Guys didn't have money, and they just stuck with it and just said, "I don't mind being poor, but I will make money making stuff for people, making art, drawing stuff, even if it's stuff I hate." A lot of guys, porn magazines in the 80s, which kind of ended in the 90s, is probably done now. Porn magazines, a lot of guys would have fake identities, and they would do illustrations for porn and stuff like that if they had the sensibility or wanted to do that. I never really did that, but I mean, some guys probably made decent livings just hacking out, you know, boobs and titty drawings for whatever magazine they could. You know, like dirty clip art, dirty cartoons. Yeah, there's a lot of artists, like I would see like in print, like in other different medias, like, I know who this artist is, why is he doing this thing? Like, I remember seeing like one artist I liked do a cereal, like a cartoon for the box of a cereal. He did a cartoon for the back of a box of Raisin Bran. Sorry for stumbling so much. And I was like, I know who this guy is, why is he doing a Raisin Bran cartoon on the back of a box? And I was like, well, he needs to make money. So now a lot of artists, probably guys I'm familiar with, whether they do comic books or illustration or cartoon, they're probably doing just fine with internet work. You know, like just working as part of some hive and then getting to do whatever personal work they want, you know, and putting that out on the side. But some artists, their personal work, they get to just do it and put it out there, and it's not shallow. Sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's bullshit, but they get to do it. I mean, I had publishers say, hey, if you give me something 80, 90 pages, I'll just print it. I didn't even need to see it. I'm telling you, I'll print it. You just make it. I just didn't make it. I mean, not like I didn't make it in a career or whatever. I mean, like I didn't have anything to say. And when I did, it turned out to be sort of like a children's book for parents. It was something that I had crafted a book, which illustrated light of day in some form. I need to rework it. I have different sensibilities now. But I had this book that was a cool idea. That's like the kids. It's for kids, and it's aimed at kids. Parents will like it too. But it's made for parents to read to kids, because the parents are going to get an earful of preaching of my personal biases and how the kids are being programmed through media, through my children's book. But it wasn't preachy in a boring way. It just seems totally innocent, naive. And when I pitched it to publishers, I even went after New Age publishers. I even went after Hay House to try and get this book I made published. And Hay House were the ones that responded to me, at least, and said, hey, pal, do you realize your book attacks all media and the publishing industry itself? Nobody's going to publish your book. You're going to have to go online and publish your book yourself and hope it gets attention. And it was really thoughtful that in the days of emails, and they could have just emailed it to me. Somebody wrote me somebody from Hay House, which, you know, I knock Hay House for New Age bullshit all the time, but somebody at least took the time to write me a handheld letter, you know, and you know, that was work there at the time to tell me, like, dude, this is never going to happen, you know. It was a woman. And here's my tattoos again. Yeah, the baggy pants thing of the 90s. Oh, people have tattoos of those things. I did more flash than this. I'm going to wrap this episode up. I went all over the place, so many things. But I think that's enough for this particular slideshow. You've seen way too much. I have more. You haven't even seen it. And stuff I know you're never going to see. But I think I'm going to end this episode now. And if you stuck around to the end, wow. Congratulations. I hope it was something useful and meaningful to you. If not today, in the long term. But for now, that's